The dew was still heavy on the grass when the first customer arrived at the Hedgehog's stall. It was a small stall, no bigger than a wooden crate, set between the old oak tree and the edge of the pumpkin patch. On it sat 3 tiny pies, each wrapped in a cabbage leaf, their golden crusts still warm from the morning sun. The hedgehog's name was Pipkin, and he had been baking since before the rooster crowed. His paws were dusted with flour, and a smear of Wildberry juice stained his snout. He looked at his 3 pies and felt something he had never felt before. Pride, but also worry. "Wildberry pies," whispered a field mouse, poking her head out from under a fern. "I have never tasted Wildberry before." "Neither have I," said Pipkin. "That is why I'm selling them. To share." The mouse crept closer. Her whiskers twitched. "How much does one cost?" Pipkin had not thought about money. He had thought about the berries. How they grew along the shaded side of the old stone wall. How he had picked them one by one, while the thrushes watched from the branch. He had thought about the flour, borrowed from the miller's sack, and the butter, churned from the cow's milk. He had thought about the heat of the brick oven and the smell that filled the barn. But money, that felt like a different kind of weight. "1 acorn," he said, because an acorn seemed fair. The mouse fumbled in her pocket and pulled out a single acorn. It was round and smooth. Pipkin placed it beside the pies, then handed her the smallest one. The mouse took it carefully, holding it with both paws, and scurried away. Pipkin watched her go. The acorn sat next to the remaining pies. He had sold his first pie, but instead of joy, he felt something else. A small ache. The pie was gone. The memory of baking it was still fresh in his mind. The careful crimping of the crust. The way the steam curled when he lifted the lid. And now it belonged to someone else. You see that small ache? That is what happens when you give something you made. It means you cared. Subscribe so you can feel this farm grow with us. And in the comments, tell us what you have made that was hard to let go. The second customer came at midday. It was a young badger, no older than a spring cub, with crumbs still on his chin from breakfast. He pointed at the largest pie. "How much?" "1 acorn." The badger dropped an acorn onto the crate and grabbed the pie before Pipkin could say another word. He bit into it right there, juice dripping down his fur. Then he looked at Pipkin with wide eyes. "This is good," he said. "This is the best thing I have eaten all summer." Pipkin felt warmth spread through his chest. "Thank you." The badger finished the pie in 3 bites, wiped his paws on his vest and wandered off. The acorn joined the first one. 2 acorns. 2 pies gone. The afternoon sun grew long. The 3rd pie remained on the crate. A fly landed on its crust. Pipkin shooed it away. He thought about taking the pie home for himself, for his own dinner. But then he remembered why he had baked them in the first place. He wanted to know if others would taste what he tasted. The sweetness of the Wildberry, the flake of the crust, the warmth of something made with care. A shadow fell across the stall. It was the old badger who lived in the hollow log near the stream. His fur was grey, and his eyes were soft. "I have been watching you all day," the old badger said. You sold 2 pies. Pipkin nodded.
Would you like the last slice,
And now
little
there is one left. Yes. Tell me, said the old badger, sitting down slowly on the grass. When you made these pies, did you think about the people who would eat them? Pipkin thought about this. I thought about the berries, where they grew, how far the sunlight reached them, how the rain fell on them. I thought about the flour, how it came from wheat that stood in the field for months. I thought about the butter, how the cow ate the clover and the grass. I thought about all of it, every step, all the way back to the seed. The old badger smiled. Then you did not just make pies, little one. You carried the whole farm inside each one. Pipkin looked down at the last pie. It was true. Every bite held the summer, the rain, the patience, the waiting. The pie was not just berries and flour. It was the memory of the stone wall where the vines climbed. It was the sound of the wind moving through the wheat. It was the warmth of the barn where the butter was churned, all of it, folded into a golden crust. If you have ever made something with your own hands, you know how Pipkin felt. The flour on your paws, the smell that wraps around you. The moment it comes out of the oven and you realize, you made this. It was nothing before. Now it is something. Something true. You have made something true too. That feeling, it is why we gather here. Subscribe so you do not miss the next golden crust. And in the comments, tell us about the best thing you have ever made. A drawing, a fort, a pie. We would love to hear. The old badger reached into his coat and pulled out 3 acorns. He placed them on the crate, next to the first 2.
Pipkin, please
You do not need to
take
buy
one.
it,
Consider it
said
a thank
Pipkin.
you for everything.
I can give it to you. The old badger shook his head slowly. No, little one. You earned every acorn. The picking, the mixing, the waiting by the oven. That is what these acorns represent. Not payment, gratitude. Pipkin felt his throat grow tight. He had not expected gratitude. He had only wanted to share. And yet here it was, sitting in a pile of 5 acorns on a wooden crate. Would you like me to cut the pie in half? Asked Pipkin. We could share it together. The old badger laughed. A low rumble from deep in his chest. I was hoping you would say that. They sat together on the grass, the last pie between them. Pipkin broke the crust with his paws. Steam rose, carrying the scent of wildberry and butter. The old badger took a piece and closed his eyes as he chewed. This tastes like the first summer I remember, he said. When I was a cub and my mother picked berries from the same wall. The same stone wall, little one. The vines have been growing there longer than either of us have been alive. Pipkin ate his piece slowly. He wanted to remember every detail. The way the crust flaked. The way the berries burst on his tongue. The way the old badger smiled. Crumbs caught in his whiskers. When the pie was finished, they sat in silence. The sun had begun to sink behind the barn, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. The hedgehog looked at the 5 acorns on his crate. They were not just acorns. They were proof that something he made had mattered to someone else. He would bake again. tomorrow, and the day after that. Each pie would carry a little more of the farm, a little more of the summer, a little more of the patience he was still learning. The old badger stood and brushed the grass from his coat. "I will see you tomorrow, Pipkin." "Yes," said Pipkin. "I will be here." The stars began to appear, one by one, as the hedgehog packed his crate. The acorns rattled softly in his pocket. He carried the empty stall back to the barn where the oven was still warm, and the flour still dusted the floor. That night, Pipkin fell asleep with the taste of Wildberry still on his tongue, and the feeling that he had finally found what he was meant to do. And in the quiet of the barn, the oven cooled, the flour settled, the 5 acorns sat on the shelf above Pipkin's nest, catching the silver light of the moon. Outside, the farm breathed. The cow shifted in her stall. The wheat whispered in the field. The stone wall where the wildberries grew held the night in its cracks. Patient and still, Pipkin's whiskers twitched as he dreamed. He dreamed of golden crusts and summer rain, of a field mouse's grateful paws and a badger's soft laugh. He dreamed of the seed that became the vine that became the berry that became the pie. And when the first light of dawn touched the barn floor, Pipkin opened his eyes. The oven was cold, but the flour was ready. And somewhere, on the shaded side of the old stone wall, the wildberries were waiting to be picked again. The crate was empty now. The pies were gone. But something had taken root in Pipkin's chest that would not leave.
First seeing them,
It was the same feeling he had when he first saw the wild berries on the vine, small and dark and full of promise. The feeling that something important was beginning. He washed his paws in the bucket by the barn door. The water turned pink with wildberry juice. He watched it spiral and fade, the last trace of the day's work disappearing into the clear water. "Tomorrow,"
we have enough berries for 3
he said to
pies,
himself.
and the flour should last until
"Tomorrow I
Tuesday.
will pick more
Yes,
berries,
3 pies
more
and a
flour,
flour.
more
I
butter,
will do it.
and there will be more pies." He did not say it like a promise. He said it like a fact, like the way the sun rises, like the way the rain falls, like the way the earth holds the seed until it is ready. The barn was dark except for a single crack of moonlight falling through the roof. Pipkin climbed into his nest of hay, curled into a tight ball, and rested his snout on his paws. The scent of wild berries still clung to his fur. He thought about the field mouse, how she held the pie with both paws, how she scurried away, carrying a piece of his work into her own small world. He thought about the young badger, the juice on his
This
chin,
is wonderful.
the way he
It's the
said,
sweetest
"This is the
pie in
best
the
thing
whole
I have eaten all
forest."
summer." He thought about the old badger, who had seen the same stone wall in a summer long ago, and he realized something true. Nothing we make is ever truly ours. The seed becomes the vine becomes the berry becomes the pie becomes the memory, and the memory stays long after the crust is gone. That memory stays. It is what you carry into your dreams. Before you close your eyes, subscribe to this quiet farm. We will be here tomorrow with more berries to pick. And in the comments, share what you hope to make with your own hands. Pipkin closed his eyes. His breathing slowed. The hay rustled softly beneath him. In the field beyond the barn, the wildberries deepened their color under the stars. The vines tightened their grip on the stone wall. The soil held the roots, patient and quiet, the way soil has always held roots. And in the morning, there would be berries again. Pipkin slept deeper than he had ever slept. No dreams came. Only the dark, warm silence of a body that had worked and was now resting. The hay cradled him. The barn held him. The farm breathed around him like a slow, gentle heart. When he woke, the first thing he saw was the 5 acorns on the shelf. They caught the morning light, their shells smooth and brown. Pipkin climbed out of his nest and stood on his hind legs, reaching up. His paws closed around the acorns one by one. He held them in his palms, feeling their weight. They were not money. They were not payment. They were the only thing he had ever received that did not come from the ground or the vine or the tree. They came because someone else had seen his work and thought it mattered. He placed them back on the shelf. He would keep them there. They would remind him, on mornings when the oven felt cold and the flour felt heavy, that the work was worth it. Outside, the sun was climbing over the barn roof. The rooster crowed. The cow mooed softly. And somewhere, beyond the stone wall, the wildberries were wet with dew, waiting for small paws to find them. Pipkin took a deep breath. The smell of hay and earth and morning filled his nose. He walked to the barn door and looked out at the farm. The grass was green. The sky was wide. The path to the stone wall was worn and familiar. He stepped forward, one paw at a time, and began the walk to the wildberry vines. The day was new. The pies would come later. For now, there were berries to pick and a farm to carry inside each one.